Some very stimulating numbers re the coffee industry. And here's a number for you. Brazil is the #1 coffee producer, according to the International Coffee Organization. But with more and more Brazilians drinking more and more Java, there's less coffee available for export. And that is pushing up global prices higher. CCTV's Paulo Cabral joins us from Sao Paulo. Paulo, we've got increased consumption and a brutal drought. And all of this is making Brazil's top crop in very high demand, isn't it?
Oh, yes, that's right, Michelle. And well, as many people know, Brazil's history is closely linked to coffee. From the end of the 19th century all the way to the first half of the 20th century, coffee was pretty much the only export product of this country. It was the revenue of the coffee exports that actually allowed Brazil to create its industry, to diversify its economy. And also coffee is the drink of choice for Brazilians, particularly in the morning. And nowadays still coffee is a very important export product from Brazil. Of course, soy now has taken over as the main agriculture export, but coffee is still high up there. But you know, despite this long history, Brazilians are changing their habits now when drinking coffee, and this does have global impacts. Over the last 25 years, coffee consumption per capita has almost doubled in Brazil. People are drinking larger quantities and developing new habits in the country.
I drink a lot of coffee in the mornings, evenings, all day on weekends. When I go shopping, I always stop at the cafe.
I didn't used to drink coffee. I would go for other drinks. But lately I've started going more to nice cafes, and this has changed my habits.
Drinking coffee is nothing new in Brazil. It's certainly the national hot beverage. But consumption patterns have changed a lot over the last decade. Millions of Brazilians have ascended from the lower classes to the middle class, obrigado, and are drinking much more coffee, while the upper middle class is looking for higher quality, specialty or gourmet products.
While the world coffee consumption grows here in Brazil about 3% per year, the specialty segment or the gourmet segment grew 15% per year, with high prices.
The new habits of coffee consumers has opened space for new businesses in the country. U.S. coffee chain Starbucks came to Brazil 7 years ago to take advantage of this new trend.
They are trying and experience better coffees, different coffees, new recipes such as macchiatos, mochas, cappuccinos, and also frappuccinos. So different ways of having the daily coffee. And due to that, I think they are growing much faster. This segment of out-of-home consumption is growing much faster than in-home.
The increased consumption in Brazil is certainly good news for businesses, but not so much for worldwide coffee drinkers, as the high demand has been causing prices to increase internationally. And analysts say there is no end in sight for this trend. And of course, this is not happening only in Brazil. According to the International Coffee Organization, other big emerging markets, emerging economies like Russia and China also have strong hikes in the consumption of coffee by their populations. And look, these are all countries with big populations, so changing the habits of consumers in these nations certainly has the potential to have global impact.
Paulo, personally, I don't start my day without a cup of coffee, but it's not only this increased consumption that we're seeing in Brazil and globally. The drought in Brazil has been devastating and it's reduced the crop this year. How significant has that been in driving up the coffee prices?
Well, very significant. You know, it's actually two forces pushing to the same side. We have to understand also that they have different natures. I mean, the coffee consumption patterns, that's a long-term trend. It's something that has been changing over the last 10 years and will still go on for the next few years. And so this is something that impact will be continued. But now we have the seasonal issue right now. Brazil, and particularly the areas where there is much coffee production, are going through a severe drought, you know, the worst in decades. Some estimates say it's the worst since 1965. And this has severely reduced production. This current harvest is about to finish, you know, in about 1 month, and the forecasts are that it will be 18% below last year. That was already a little bit, about 1% below the previous year. So yes, this will certainly have a strong impact. Sorry, no good news for people who really like their coffee and spend some money on it.
You know what? We'll just have to pay more. Worth it for that caffeine dose. Thanks so much, Paula Cabral, live in Sao Paulo.